Good afternoon. I'm Gloria Nelson with TUG, and we're so glad to have you join us this afternoon for our TUG Connects 365 programming. As you settle in and get ready for the start of today's webinar, let me give a brief introduction for TUG, the usergroup.org, for both our current members and for those of you who represent organizations that have not yet joined our online community of Infor distribution software users. Now, we've all heard the phrase before, knowledge is power, and I can say with confidence that after today's presentation, you'll be waking up tomorrow with a little more of both. Today is but one of our many in-depth sessions in our TUG Connects 365 series. TUG webinars, online forums, and member events facilitate the timely exchange of ideas and information to help you work smarter and with more confidence. And I don't know how you feel, but I do believe that that is a powerful and winning combination. If you're currently a member, it pays to get even more involved. And website to discover why 2,300 heads are better than one to help you be the best at what you do. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Daryl Ziegelman, CIO of Central Data Systems, who's going to kick things off for UnForm as we learn about their tools for data entry automation. Daryl, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Gloria. Thanks everybody for being online today. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is about automation. And so all of you are looking at ways to automate processes within your organizations, right? We've looked at EDI for so long. That's been one way that people have automated their processes. And so what are some of the ways that you're automating processes today? So you might use the chat or the Q&A box today to bring in some ideas that we can look at. But we're going to talk about data automation through paper. But as employment was down, we were looking for ways to automate processes. Now we're looking for ways to do it because maybe we don't have all the same folks in our organizations, and we need to automate processes that are day-to-day operations. There are ways that we can automate our operations. So think about ways that you're doing automation. Maybe you can throw out some ideas so we can discuss them as well. So on the line today from our organization, Central Data, I also have our VP of Client Experience, Julie Zindle, who's going to speak in a little while. But before that, we have Paul Boushell from Synergetic Data Systems, who's their sales executive, and he's going to start by talking about AP automation. So Paul, you want to take that away?
Sure. Thanks, Daryl.
You're welcome.
So let me, I'm going to just step through a few slides here. I'm not going to spend too much time in it. And then what we'll do is actually look at software. Julie's going to show us, you know, how they've automated AP with fax. And then I'm going to step through how we're doing it with SX.e and Cloud Suite. But, you know, essentially the process begins when we receive documents, and we either receive them electronically via email or we're receiving hard copies that get scanned. With UnForm version 10, we now have the ability to monitor both inbound directories and inbound emails. So as those documents come in, we can monitor an email address and pick up the documents that are coming in, identify who sent them, and then process them without human intervention. So the monitored inbound sources give you the ability to trigger that automation. Image Manager picks the jobs up and runs what we call job definitions. And those job definitions first identify who sent us the document, and then based on that, we know where to look to find the PO number, the invoice date. We can even get line detail off of that document. And then we're going to push that document into the archive where it's available for retrieval. And we've got Chrome web extensions that you can add to the web UI and the CSD to be able to launch directly from the archive. And we're also, at that time, we're going to actually take that data that we extracted from an invoice, and we're going to either create the EDI 10i.dat file if you're on-prem, or we're going to create the order bod for you if you're running CSD. And the idea here is to be able to get the data off of that document and get that transaction entered into the system without having to do that data entry piece. So, you know, the idea here is let's automate that data entry piece so that your folks can focus on the much more important parts of you know, the transaction, those that fall out, that fail a three-way match, or those exceptions, so that you know, the documents that are routine transactions can just flow through. You get those important discounts, and you're ready to go. We can also use the image manager to push documents into IDM as well. So if you use an IDM, we can also push those documents into IDM. Julie's going to step us through how you can automate the AP process for fax. So very similar flow. It's going to come in through Image Manager and hit Archive, but then she's going to step through also the doc flow piece of it. So, you know, making sure everything, the three-way match occurs, or that, you know, if it's an expense type invoice, that the correct approvals get applied prior to that data entry. And we can also do the same process with inbound customer purchase orders as well. So as those POs come in, we can get the data off of it. We can create, again, either the, you know, DDI 850i.dat or that order bod, and then use, you know, standard processing to push those orders in. Typically, a lot of folks will typically prefer to have them come in as quotes so that you can review them and go from there. So, in addition to the monitored inbound sources where we're looking for stuff and picking it up as it comes in, we're also able to automate based on a couple of other pieces of technology as well that we can bring to bear on a document as it comes in. So if it's a PDF with a text layer, which is that's typically what we see now, we can just read that text off of that PDF. So you don't have to use optical character recognition to get it. It reads the text. We can get that text layer off of there accurately 100% of the time. If it is in fact an image, then we do have optical character recognition included with it. So it'll run the OCR against it to grab the information. We can also read barcodes and recognize what's in that barcode. We can also look up data in the ERP. So if there's data that is, you know, required for a transaction that may not necessarily be on a document, we can go pull it from the ERP and get it included in that transaction data. And then we can validate the data a variety of ways. One of them is what we just talked about. We can look up data in the ERP. So I can say, hey, does this PO number, vendor number actually exist? So we can validate that it, you know, the PO's number is correct. We can do mathematical validation on the data that's been extracted so that we know, you know, that we've gotten that data off as accurately as possible. So those data validations can be used to do a lot of things to ensure that we've got the data that we need and that it's accurate prior to actually generating a transaction from it. So I just want to see, before we jump into the actual software demonstration, are there any questions at this point? Is this kind of, I'm hoping this is what you guys were expecting to see today. So we'll just give it just a second there, and then we can turn it over to Julie.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Gloria, now would be a great time if you could launch that poll. We would kind of like to see what ERP platform you're on. So if you could please vote and let us know whether you're SX.e, A+, fax, or on Cloud Suite. That'll give us an idea of the audience today. While that poll is happening, let me just set the table a little bit. I'm going to be showing UnForm 10 with fax 9.3 today. And I'm going to be showing 3 different areas of the software. I'll be showing the document archiving piece. We'll jump into the image manager and talk about how you can scan and do image capturing there. And then we'll go into doc flow for approvals and also for the management of exceptions of the invoices that, that you're seeing from your vendors. Okay, we have a nice subset of users today. We have SX.e, fax, and Cloud Suite. Everyone's represented. Thanks, Gloria. You can put that down. Thank you for sharing that poll. And I'm going to share my screen and get into the software demonstration. So let me make sure that that's working. All right. Hopefully you're seeing my screen okay. Okay. All right, so let's look first of all at the first piece, which was document archiving. So I'm going to just jump in here for those of you who haven't seen the solution yet. And I'm going to show you that each one of the libraries are created already for documents that you create out of your fax system. So we see accounts payable, accounts receivable, etc. And today we're going to focus on accounts payable. So we have our own section where we could have different types of documents that are archived in the system. So we'll be jumping back and forth here so that you can see as the documents actually come in. Next, we're going to jump over to the image capture area. And I'm going to show you that there's a scan folder here. And this allows me to bring in documents from outside of my system. They might come from an email, or they may be a scanned document that you've received at the mail. But these are going to be for, in our case today, they're all going to be AP invoices. So I have 4 different invoices ready to go, but let me just show you a little bit about the process itself. So first of all, my documents would be stored somewhere in a shared network area. And I can come here at any point in time and upload files. So I can go out and I can select files, and I can go to anywhere I can get data off of my system. So that's how I brought these documents in today. I scanned them into my pending scanned source folder. So I've got these 4 different invoices, and I have 4 scenarios here today to show you. The first one's going to be a perfect match. You know, the vendor detail matches exactly to my PO. Everything's hunky-dory, and I can just bring that one in. And then I've got another one where the vendor charged prepaid freight. You know, they're a prepay and add type vendor. And I want to be able to, you know, bring that one in and create a freight line for it at the same time. I've got another invoice here. This one will be where we got the invoice, but we haven't received the PO yet. What happens in that case? And then my final example here will be where I have one where we have a discrepancy, and how can we handle that? All right, so let me just take the first invoice here. I'm going to double click it and just show you that you can see where the OCR has drawn boxes around the pertinent data that I need from this vendor invoice. Again, it has a true text layer. We can create a vendor template so that every time we get an invoice from Bunny Rabbit Farms, it knows where to find things like the PO, our PO number. It knows where to find, you know, the name of the vendor so we can identify the vendor. You can see it's getting the detail. It's going down to the last page. There were, I think, 5 pages on this invoice till it gets to where it has the invoice total, okay? So that is all done with the UnForm product. The OCR is done. We can store the templates, and then we create job properties around them. So here's my next invoice that I got from a vendor, and this is the one that has freight on it. So we have our total, but we also have some freight that we are going to be adding. So we have our shipping charges. So that's just another example. Okay, that being said, once my documents have been scanned into my pending documents folder, I can select them all, and then I will run a job on them so that it can validate the data against what's in my fax system. So I will take my run job button right here, and I have a stored job called fax AP demo. Now let me just stop here for a minute and tell you that this is a very configurable product. This is one example of what Central Data has done for a client, but you can envision your own workflows, your own methods as you set up your system. So it's very configurable to the way that you want to process your AP. All right, so let me run this job, and it's going to go through, and you'll see it's starting to run some processes, and then it tells me when it's finished. All right, so I'm going to close that window for a second, and you'll see all of my invoices now have a checkbox that tells me that they're ready to come in. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to transfer them to the library. So I'm going to click this box to transfer the ready documents. So when I click that, I'm going to say yes, and it's going to do some work. While it's working, I'm just going to kind of talk through the process here a little bit. It's going to take all of these documents and bring them in, first of all, to my archive. So every vendor invoice that you have from your vendors not only gets automatically brought into your PO invoice receiving for your accounts payable actions, but it also stores a copy out in the archive. So we saw we have our 4 jobs done. So if I go back to my UnForm document archiving, and I go back to my AP library now, you'll see I now have a new type called vendor invoice, and there are those 4 invoices. And I can see copies of them. I can go in and look at them from here. I can see the images, and I've done it a few times, as you can see. So you can actually click on it and see what the document looks like. And again, these are out here for as long as you want to keep them. So they're already in the archive. Okay, so let's go to fax now and take a look what happened in the fax system. So if I go into my PO receipt entry screen, and my dates are off because this is a little demo system, but when I click on my document search, you'll see I have some documents already come into the system. I saw one for Bunny Rabbit Farms and I saw one for CAP USA. Well, what happened to the other 2? So in this case, those would be my examples of where we have some things that couldn't be matched exactly. But let's go in and look at this just so you can see the document really did come in here. So when I double click, you can see it found the correct GL number. It knows the amount. It matched the amount that was on my invoice. And you'll notice at the top of the screen, I can also go in and look at the archived purchase order. Now, because I printed this to an UnForm formatted printer or to PDF, it automatically created that purchase order for me. So I have not only the invoice, but I also can drill right into the PO that was received for that invoice. Okay, so we've got our documents in archive. We've got our documents in fax. Now let's talk about what happened to the ones that we don't have in here. Oh, let me bring in our CAP one too, just so you can see the other one that came in with freight. So let me bring that one up as well. And if we look at CAP, you'll notice that it brought in my line item, my I-101 item, but it also automatically created my uninventoried freight item, and it put it to the correct general ledger. All right, so those are the 2 that came in without any problem. So the next thing we're going to look at is what happened to the 2 that didn't come in. That's where our doc flow comes into play. So this is a tool that will let us take care of, I gotta find my right screen here. It'll let us see not only where, it'll let us not only see what came in, but also there's exceptions that we have to manage. So let me just go back to my home portal here for a minute. Sorry, my screen is in the way here. Here it is, doc flow. And I'm gonna come in here and show you the doc flows that we have created. Now we're gonna look at them in reverse order. We're gonna look at pending, then drop ship, and then approval. But you'll see in each case, I can see the number of doc flow documents that are out here that are pending and need a resolution. So my first example is going to be this one. And this is my example of the document itself that had no, it wasn't received yet. So it had no receiver to match against. So this one will sit out here. And what we did is we put in an expiration date to look out 3 days ahead. So every couple days, if this PO hasn't been received, it's going to remind me to go back and look at it and re-examine whether this PO is ready to be run in. And I can then also just bring it back in and then match it once the PO is received. Now in SX.e and Cloud Suite, we have a little advantage on that side because you have your AP Invoice Center, and you know that those unreceived POs will allow you to sit in your Invoice Center as an exception until they come in, and then they automatically flow through. But in our case, we have a little bit of a manual process watching for the receipt of the PO. Our last item we had in our group, we also have a little drop ship one here. So we have a pending area for drop ships. So this would be the vendor has shipped, but we have to do something. So we get a reminder in our drop ship folder here in our doc flow to go out and receive the PO and invoice the customer, and then we can process through the AP invoice. And the final one is we have an approval where, you know, it didn't have a match. So in that case, we would have an issue where, and my document didn't come in here for you to see, unfortunately, but what we had there was a $12.81 discrepancy. And we've actually created 4 different actions that we can do. I'm going to see if I can show you on a different example. It's not going to come up here for me. I'm just going to talk through it then. We have 4 different examples of actions we can take on a document that didn't match. So on our document that was for our discrepancy, we can either make the selection to say for that $12.81, just let it come in to fax with an undistributed amount, and you can fix it in fax. We also have a solution, an option where we can just do manual entry in fax. So we can just, you know, eliminate it from in our pending folder and just go in and do the manual entry. There are times when that may be the easiest option. Then there's another one where we can send it back to AP pending. So we might send it for an approval for somebody to approve the discrepancy. So, and you can set thresholds about how much discrepancy you allow and so forth. So we have all those different options in our system for how we can manage the automation. And I see that there are some questions. So let me pause here and let's see what questions we have. Go back here so you can see something on my screen.
So, Julie, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so there were a couple different questions. One was if you're using IDM in Infor OS, can you store the inbound invoice there instead of UnForm? And the answer is yes, absolutely. And then there was another question about the mapping and kind of how that works. And you know, the answer is that you create an initial template to define what data elements need to be captured. And then you adjust the zones that that data is in based on each different vendor's invoice layout.
Right. Was there anything else?
That looks like it for now.
Paul, there was also a question about, can we see this in SX.e also? So we're going to do that next, but I was going to say, you know, a lot of what you're showing, Julie, isn't that really very similar in how the SX.e side? I mean, the UnForm is going to operate very much the same when we get into SX.e. So a lot of what you're seeing, Norman, your question, it's going to be similar on SX.e, just now you're going to be moving into SX.e rather into fax.
Right, the UnForm piece looks very similar. The one difference is, as I stated, is that fax doesn't have an invoice center. So we cannot take in an invoice for something that hasn't been received yet. So that's one difference, but the UnForm side looks very similar. Okay, are there any other questions?
That's all the questions I see at the moment, Julie.
Oh, okay, well then I will turn it over to Paul next.
All right, let me get some of this stuff out of the way here. So let's start again. You know, the automation piece of it again works very similar. You know, for the ERPs. It's just what the ERP does with the data that is different. But as you saw, Julie actually dragged and dropped some documents into a specific directory where it picked it up and ran it. I'm going to send these to an email address that we're monitoring. And that's that inbound source we were discussing. So inbound sources, again, can be email addresses, and based on, that source, that email address, I can define, what we need to do to those particular types of documents as they come in. So when they hit this particular email address, I know what it is I need to do with them. And then we can also have directories. That actually, we've got an alias set up on that email address. So when I put my name in front of it, it'll actually end up in this particular inbound source. And then as those documents come in, what we'll do is identify who sent them. And then based on that identification, we know where to go to find the data elements we need to create in the electronic transaction. You'll see here too, I've got all these check marks. I actually have one more step automated. We've got, for the demos, we don't turn the full automation on, so we can kind of step you through how that works. Hang on just one second. Let me get back over here. And so in this example, I actually had these job definitions turned on so that as they hit that particular email address, it ran my CSD job definitions. So it ran the job, identified who it was, got the data off of it. And then once I complete this, it'll actually create the invoice pod and push that over into the AP Invoice Center. But again, these check marks indicate that I got all the data that was required and my validations all ran, and these are all good. I've got one here that didn't get a check mark, and you'll see here, if I hover over the indicated where the error is, it's going to tell me that it's detected, in this case, a duplicate. So it's going to hold it up so that somebody can come in and take a look at it and see, exactly what it is. And then to kind of further answer that question about the mapping, we're using what we call job definitions. So a job definition is simply based on a particular, in this example, a vendor's layout. So I've defined, where my key data elements are on the document and what data fields I need to get from those. So as a new vendor comes in, all I have to do is adjust these zones to grab the right data field. So that's how those are done. And also note too that in that email I sent, I had 3 PDFs, and I've actually got more invoices than that. That's because this particular invoice was a single PDF that had multiple invoices in it. So we know based on when a invoice number changes that we need to start a new document. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these in. So I'm just going to grab a few for sake of time here, transfer these over, and this job will run. Again, if the full automation was turned on, this would have run automatically, and the net result would have been over in Cloud Suite, as it'll take them just a second to run. You'll see the invoices are starting to come in to the AP Invoice Center. So again, the goal here is, rather than spending all that time doing this data entry, right? Especially with, typically everybody, it's the 80-20 rule with their vendors. They're doing 80% of your business with 20% of your vendors. So those are what you focus on first. Get those set up, and then those routine transactions can just process. And Daryl, I might need a little help here, but so when they hit AP Invoice Center, it does a very good job, in Cloud Suite of doing the 3-way match for you. So it's going to come in and it's going to check the pricing, it's going to check your receipt quantities and those things. And if in fact the 3-way match is all valid, you can have it go ahead and flow through AP Invoice Center and go ahead and schedule a payment. And then those that fail the 3-way match are going to stay here and and someone would have to review them.
Yeah, and when you say fail, that's an interesting question. So in CSD or in SX.e, you have an option either at the company or at the vendor level to set tolerances, which is one of the things that's unique about Vendor Invoice Center or APEI if you're in GUI, in that you can set the tolerance on the header level at dollars, quantity, or percentage difference. Same thing at the line, dollars, quantity, or percentage difference. And if it's outside that tolerance, it's going to stop and say, hey, I can't post that automatically. I've got a discrepancy I need to know how to handle. Whereas if it's within tolerance, it's just going to post it and it's going to be ready to be paid. So, it's just a matter of you're eliminating the entry function. You're just really getting to an update situation of, hey, something happened. The PO and the AP invoice did not match. And what do you want to do about it? So that's where now the automation has taken care of the front end of it. Now SX.e has taken care of how you want to handle those discrepancies. And then you're going to decide what you want to do from here.
Yeah. And then it's the doc flow can be different too based on the ERPs. So as Julie stepped through on the fax side, the three-way matches happening ahead of time. So that's when it needs to be in a doc flow is prior to the entry. When you go ahead.
Hey,
Sorry.
Paul, there was one thing that Shane brought in here in our chat, and he said another cool thing we'll do is extract PDFs from zip files. We have a vendor that sends group of invoices inside a zip file, and UnForm is smart enough to extract those and process them. To bring them invoices into GUI, you have to use the EDI process import, which is correct. Or, there is another way. So if you normally will do that flat file EDI import, but if you're on CSD, we're not using flat file import. We're using ion BODs to bring it in. So it will come in through the ion BOD import and then get handled that way. But really, basically the same way, it's just a different file format.
Yep. That's cool. Yeah.
Thanks Shane.
Yeah. So then, typically this doc flow is going to be a little different for SX.e. So, if it's a trade invoice and everything matches up, there's no need for it to hit a doc flow. But if it does fail the three-way match though, you can add that document back to a doc flow, and it's pretty easy to do that. There's a couple of different ways, but if you're in there looking at the particular transaction and looking at the invoice, I can actually add it from here. So kind of a typical scenario we see with SX or Cloud Suite is that it would go back to the buyer. So you can come in here and just pick whoever the buyer is, drop it in their flow, and they'll end up getting an email alert from it. So when they click on that email, it'll drive them in to the doc flow and those documents they need to look at. So if we take a look at it, this buyer would have gotten an email alert, and within the email, he can click the link. It'll open doc flow for him, and in there he's got the invoice, the packing slip, all the documents that are required, to be able to review that transaction and figure out, what's going on with it. And you can look at them all side by side, so they're all there for you. So you can go back through and review. And then from here, these are the actions. So what am I going to do with it once I've either fixed it or not? And this is all configurable, as Julie indicated. So it's just based on whatever your particular business process is. But in this one, if we go ahead and approve this and save it and hit it, it'll actually send it over to AP. AP will get an alert, and they'll be able to go in and complete that transaction. So again, it's a little bit of a different flow for Cloud Suite and SX because it does do the three-way match for your in AP Invoice Center. So when it fails, that's when those need to go into a doc flow. And you can also, of course, if you have expense type invoices. Those can go into a flow as well. And typically they'll hit the flow first and get the various layers of approval that may be required prior to actually entering that transaction. And this, again, is kind of a typical one that we see where it's based on a dollar value. And I'm logged in as an admin, so I see everybody's roles here, so I can see everybody. But you'll see if it's below $200, the branch manager can approve it. If it's between $300 and $1,000, the controller can approve it. If it's 1,000 and up, it's got to go to the CEO. And again, this is all configurable, and you could have, over certain dollar amounts, you may require multiple approvals, and all that gets logged so that it's available for you, so you know who did what to that document and when they did that. So you've got a full log of it. You can add other attachments here if you need to, and add notes here. So that is a great way to kind of automate the expense approval side of the AP flow. So it can go go out based on department or a dollar value or whatever your particular business rule is. And get those approvals, and then as it moves through the line, again, it's gonna, once you approve one and forward it, it will move to whatever the next step is in that particular process. So in this example, again, it's gonna go back to accounting so that they can go ahead and process that document. So that was, we were trying not to take too much of everybody's time today, but that is everything we were going to show today. So I want to make sure we've got some time now for any additional questions that you guys may have.
So we do have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is from Mary Jane. She's asking, can you schedule the document retrievals?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Schedule the document retrieve. Oh, as far as when we're picking documents up out of directories or from an email box, the answer is yes. You can schedule when that picks up. If that was, did that answer the question? I'm sorry.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
And Raymond has a question. Daryl, this might be for you. This is, how do you compare UnForm with Episoft and the IDM solution?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So first of all, IDM is not a document storage solution. Well, it's only a document storage solution. I should say that. Sorry, misspoke myself. It does not have the capture functionality, which is the piece that we're really talking about today. Now, UnForm can do all of the pieces, but IDM does come with the storage capability. What it doesn't come is for the document capture. Episoft is that solution. Now, it's completely, it handles things a lot differently, and maybe Paul can even talk about it from a competitive standpoint. I can't, but I would say there's a significant price difference between the Episoft solution and the UnForm solution in terms of producing very similar results, and much more mature results, because SDSI has been doing this for a lot longer than Episoft has been with our distribution solution. So they have a lot of experience. They know the kind of things that our distributors are looking to automate. So they do have that advantage. Paul, maybe you can speak to some of the differences there too.
Yeah, I think to your point too, there's a very significant price difference. I think with the UnForm solution, you get all the same functionality and more in a lot of cases for a much more reasonable price. And again, to Daryl's point, we've been doing this with wholesale distribution for a long time and understand that part of the business. So I think, just that, understanding the business processes that we're automating makes a huge difference as well.
Yeah, and we only talked about AP automation today, and there's plenty of other things that can be automated and things that we're working on with SDSI to automate, like orders. So just because people can answer the phone Maybe your orders are coming through email, they're coming by fax, and why can't we automate and put those into the system? Or, you know, you get your scanner from your bank to scan your checks for cash receipts. Why couldn't you scan those into your ERP package and have those automate the cash receipts process? So some of those things could be done as part of automation to eliminate the entry need and just really get around to the editing process that needs you to be involved with.
Sure. Sure. And again, to the, you know, the automation piece is cool, and there's a huge ROI when you get it up and running. But again, it's a capture platform too for anything. You can use it for any documents that come into the business, or maybe that don't. So, and some of the job definitions may be very simple. You know, read a barcode, get a sales order number, and file the proof of delivery away, something like that. So,
right.
So it's very flexible.
Well, it could be at the end of the day, you want to scan all your pick tickets. So again, if you have IDM as your document creation and delivery system, it's going to store those outgoing documents, but it's not going to be able to scan a batch of pick tickets and bring them in. You're going to need some kind of capture solution, which, you know, what's one of the things that the UnForm system does on top of the automation piece too.
Okay, we have a couple more questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
From Greg. Is there a quick UnForm video that can be shared? He'd like to share it with others in his organization.
We do have, well, certainly this has been recorded, and we do have on our site a number of videos that we've got, both just kind of overview videos, and there's actually a fair amount of training videos up there as well. So we're adding more and more training videos all the time too. So they can give you a good feel for what some of the capabilities are as well. So yeah, just go to unform.com and look through both the support and the sales tab, and you can get to the videos. And there's a bunch of them out there on YouTube as well. So.
And I'm going to put that one out there for YouTube that shows just the quick AP automation.
Oh yeah.
Overview for everybody in the chat.
And another question in the chat is, can processes be automated from UnForm, such as auto emailing documents based on library or document date, etc.?
Yes.
Okay.
And I saw Shane added another comment. Thanks, Shane. Also, the documents are compressed and encrypted.
That's right. So you can't just navigate to a directory somewhere and read everybody's documents.
Okay, were there any more questions that we haven't seen yet or we haven't noticed?
I don't see any.
I think we got them.
Oh, wait. There was a question from Chad. Oh, my question was just answered. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, and then again, it's a flexible solution. You know, you don't necessarily have to use every one of the UnForm modules, but I encourage you to do that. But you don't necessarily have to have them all to do some of the things we talked about today.
Awesome. All right, Gloria, I think we've hit it all. Can't hear you.
Thank you for the reminder. Just goes to show you we're live, and we appreciate everyone grading on a generous curve. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to all three of you for the great content this afternoon. It's been most informative and I think very helpful to our membership. We want to encourage people to continue this dialogue and discussion on our member forum boards. Feel free to continue to talk about that. And once again, for those of you who have not joined TUG, now is a great time to jump over to our website at www.theusergroup.org and join today. And the only other thing that I would like to add is that all of you should have seen in the SX.e group, for those SX.e users in our midst, that we have a wonderful, robust discussion plan for this Friday on September 11th. So without any further ado, let me again thank all of you for joining us online this afternoon. And again, Paul, Daryl, and Julie, thank you for your informational content, and we'll see you next time. And as they say in Hollywood, that's a wrap. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.